So let's jump straight into my stats for September on Etsy. This was another crazy month. One of the craziest things I'm finding is that I had one good month, and then since then everything has kind of just gradually increased and sort of snowballed from there, which is obviously super exciting, and I honestly don't know how to process it completely. But for September, our visits were 3,775. They were mostly consistent. There's a few jumps throughout the month, but overall, not too bad. It also did a lot better at the start and then trickled down a little bit, which is fine. We got 105 orders in 1 month. 105. I made an order every day. That's the first time that's ever happened. There's a few days, of course, that just have one order, which is still amazing. And our orders have increased over 1,000% against this period last year. This time last year is when my store did actually start to do okay for me. It's when I started to actually make some sales, and we made 100 sales total throughout all of last year. I made that many sales in September. Like I said, I don't fully know how to process all of how well my store is doing for me. Our conversion rate was 2.8 again, which was the same as last month, which is really cool to see that it hasn't gone down. And our revenue was $1,700, which again is a crazy amount of money. Obviously some days I did better in sales, so I did better in revenue, and it also depended on what I sold, because I have a couple of more high ticket items, which is my second brain and my life dashboard, and then I have a lot of the others are about a third to a quarter of the price of those. And I definitely sell more of those than the high ticket items, but all in all, they all contribute to the revenue at the end of the day. The How Shoppers Found Me is still increasing more with the social media. As you can see here, Pinterest is still doing really well. I did get a comment in my last one of these to do a walkthrough on how exactly I do my Pinterest marketing and make my Pinterest pins. So I am going to do a video on that. I promise it's coming. And if you have any questions in particular you want me to answer on that, on Pinterest marketing and my strategy and what I do, please comment them down below and I'll be sure to include them in that video. But these two used to be very equal. I think slightly more towards Etsy bringing in my visits, but now I'm bringing in a lot of them. And the amazing thing with this is now Etsy has brought in traffic from your share and save links, which is a slightly different link that you can share, which for me is this. And then it's showing me how many clicks this is getting and how many orders specifically I have brought in from those links, which I think is such a cool feature. Even the amazing thing is that they will give you 4% back on those sales. But even without this, I honestly just like seeing how many orders I in particular brought in. So I brought in 11, which out of 100 is not amazing, but it's pretty good for me, because like I've mentioned before, I don't have a huge audience. My YouTube audience is pretty decent now. I'm really happy with it, and you guys are quite engaged. But in the grand scheme of social media, I don't have a large audience. And my Pinterest also is quite small, so it's quite cool to see that they are coming in from the places that I'm sharing my links. If we just come down to my top listings for views, it was my media tracker listing, and that is definitely because it's performing so well on Pinterest. I think I'll get to those stats soon anyway, and I'll show you how they're doing, but this one definitely is from Pinterest. My second brain has been pretty popular since I released it, honestly, so it's really cool to see that that is still really high. And then if we switch over to viewed by orders instead, my in the kitchen template is now doing really well, which is something I think is also to be aware of with Etsy. Is just because it doesn't perform instantly doesn't mean it's not going to, because I listed this, I'm honestly not sure how long ago now, but this month it did really good. And previously it's kind of not. You just really never know how a listing's going to go. Obviously you can tweak it and try and improve it, but I haven't touched this one. I've just left it. And my second brain, like I said, has just been doing well in general. So they were my top sellers for the month. You can see how many orders they each got and then the revenue I received from each one. We'll quickly pop into my monthly statement so that you can see that as well. Of course, my revenue was $1,700, but my actual net profit was almost $1,500 after all the fees and everything came out. So if we just look at the sales, 105, and then there's like GST, sales tax, etc. Fees, the biggest one is like transaction fees and processing fees. They are quite large, but this is still money that I wouldn't have had anyway. So I try not to focus on the fees or worry too much about like losing that money, because I wouldn't have had the sales without this platform. It really doesn't bother me at all. And then sales and services, there's $1.29 on marketing, and that's just from offsite ads, which I have no control over. Etsy just does those itself. But I have not done ads since middle of the year, maybe May. And it's funny that since I stopped doing ads is when my store actually took off a lot more. And I'm not sure if doing them again would help with that and help me get more sales or not. But for now, I'm happy just not doing them, honestly. They never worked for me. I could do more research into how to do this properly, but personally, I'd rather not. Each to their own when it comes to Etsy ads, honestly. And if we jump into my Notion template, this is where I put all of my monthly stats into one place so you can see very clearly how well each month is done. As you can see for September, our visits were by far the best. They were over 1,000 more than last month, which was more than 1,000 more than the last month. So we'll see how October goes. I do know that this part of the year is when online sales tend to improve. Q3, Q4, before Christmas. It's just that time of year. I'm not really sure why, honestly, but I've seen a lot about it. I've heard a lot of other Etsy sellers talk about it. So I am quite excited to now be in that part of the year. I didn't add any new listings in September that I can remember. Like I said, 105 orders, which is almost double what we did in July. And July was a crazy month, but that's when my second brain was released. And it's quite funny because, as I mentioned, my second brain is quite a high ticket item. So even though I sold half as many things, my net profit was very similar for that month. So it just goes to show you can either sell many things at a lower price or fewer things at a high price and sort of come out at the same. Well, I mean, of course, that's just math, right? But you know what I mean. You don't have to have big ticket items to do well with an Etsy store, and you don't have to just have low ticket items to do well either. The conversion rate has stayed at 2.8, which I'm really happy with. We were sitting around the low ones for quite a while, and then obviously July we got to nearly 4, which was mind-blowing. But I think 2 close to 3 is a really good conversion rate to have. I'm really happy with that conversion rate. Our goal was to get to 2 back in May, which we did by 1%. Oh, sorry, 0.1%. And so it's been nice to see that be quite consistent and that stay high again. As you can see looking at this, June was not a great month. And then all of a sudden, July was an amazing month. I went from making roughly $150 a month to now I'm averaging just over $1,000 a month, which is kind of life-changing money. We will quickly jump into my Pinterest so that I can show you some of my better performing listings so you can see what can be done with Pinterest. So I still haven't listed anything on here since my Dark Academia Second Brain, which was a little while ago now. I honestly keep feeling like I need to post more on here, but it's just finding the time. As you can see, some listings will only do a few hundred, and then there's some that'll do a couple of thousand. But then also there are some here, like this pin in particular has had 13,000 impressions, which is kind of insane. 800 people have clicked on it and 100 people have saved it. And the funny thing is, this Etsy listing, I've sold like 1 of these templates, I think maybe 2 total. So it doesn't always convert into sales, but it definitely can. So as I mentioned, I noticed my media tracker was my best performing listing in September. And then if we come into Pinterest here, it had 100,000 impressions, which is definitely my best performing. 6,000 people clicked on it and nearly 800 people saved it. And then nearly 600 people actually clicked the link to go and view my store. So this one definitely has converted into sales because, as I mentioned, it was our best performer in September. So that's really cool to see. It is a bit up and down, as you can see. Sometimes it gets not much and sometimes it gets a lot, and it is trickling down. And I think that is due to my inactivity on Pinterest. Like I said, I'm not a regular poster. It's just whenever I can. Here's another one with my Light Academia media tracker. It's had 75,000 impressions and 6,000 clicks. If we go in to see more stats, you can see nearly 500 people, 450 people have actually clicked into my Etsy listing. And while this one sort of dropped off and didn't do well, it is now starting to do well again, which is really cool to see. Here's my overall business hub, and you can see my impressions are still up compared to normal, but they are starting to drop down. And then my top pins are shown here, which I think is just, for the last 30 days, which is pretty cool. And finally, I'll just show you my store itself. My other goal for this year by the 31st of December, which I mentioned, I think in my first video, I mentioned at some point on this channel, we hit 100 last year. I really wanted to give myself a new goal that I thought was going to be quite tough to achieve. And the first few months, I definitely felt like we weren't going to achieve it. But as you can see, looking at my store now, we have made 524 sales as of October the 6th while I'm recording this. So again, I have to thank you guys so much for helping me reach this goal. Having 500 sales in my store is not something I ever thought I was going to achieve, I have to admit, when I first started the store. But the fact that we're here now is so exciting, and now I'm going to have to figure out a new goal, maybe by the end of the year, to get to. But again, you guys are the best. Thank you so much for watching these videos, supporting my store, and helping me grow. So there you have it. That was all of my stats for September. I really hope this was helpful, and I hope it maybe inspired some of you guys to give Etsy a go if you've been considering it. I think it is a really valuable platform, and as long as you're consistent and willing to put a little bit of time into it, you will get results. They sometimes can be slow and they can come out of nowhere, but I think as long as you stick with it, they will come eventually. Please give this video a thumbs up. It would really support me and my channel, and subscribe if you want to keep following along this journey with me. I'll see you guys all in the next video. Bye guys.